Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren. Okay. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Planning Board. We do have a quorum. I'll ask the members to identify themselves.
Richard Mack. Richard Matten.
Terry Delapaz,
Tim White.
Fred Massey.
Tyler Dixon.
Jenny Flanagan.
Blake Costa.
Okay. The only item on the agenda is Settlers Green. Before we get into that, though, the last time we should have noted that this is an annual review under Rhode Island General Laws 452340G and 452339C7 regarding a one-year extension of the master plan approval. This extension will continue until the board has deliberated and submitted a ruling on the matter before us. Okay, and the matter before us is Settlers Green, major subdivision land development, comprehensive permit, preliminary phase. The owner is Last Ever Realty LLC, Plat 20, Lot 16, 159 and 164. The project description is a residential development including 12 family dwelling units, 2 4-story garden apartment buildings with 54 units each, 1 and 2 bedroom. We are still in a public hearing as from a carryover from our last meeting. As I remember it, Marissa Desautels, representing the Develop Warren Wisely group, had provided testimony from Ms. Robinson, who spoke to the environmental impact of this projected project on the surrounding area. At this point, would like to open it to the public. I will remind everyone that this has been a long and grueling process, and extensive testimony makes a bad situation worse if it's not relevant, or if it's a repeat of what somebody has already said. So we have taken to heart and to mind everything that has been said here, both for and against this project to date. We've also received letters which were passed along and which we've read and understand. So I would ask you, if you are going to speak, to keep it within 3 to 5 minutes. If you go over 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you politely to sit down. It's the nature of the beast that sometimes people like to speak longer than that. But in order for us to do our jobs and to keep our sanity, I had asked you to please respect the 3 to 5 minute rule. So is there?
Yes, sir, Chair.
Yeah,
Prior to moving forward, would we be able to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
sure. Are there any corrections to the minutes from last time?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Blake. Okay.
I don't mind, I'm gonna read it. Okay. The microphone on?
Thank you. Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to read it because
No
I don't want to forget anything. Okay, good evening. My name's Barbara Frerish. My husband David and I own Frerish Farm on Kennicott Avenue. David bought the farm in 1975, 50 years ago. And a well has been used as our only source of water since then for the farm and our home. We have 2 wells and we've never had a problem with our water. There's also many houses on nearby streets. I believe there's around 40. It concerns us with all the construction and the runoff from the huge parking lot and buildings that our wells could become depleted or contaminated. Our business depends on thousands of gallons of clean water regularly, and any disruption to that could be catastrophic to our livelihood. We have 10 greenhouses that use water daily from March through July. We grow 20,000 mums in the field that need to be watered daily during the summer and fall. It'd be a huge hardship for us if our wells got contaminated or run dry and we had to pay for town water. The town water line doesn't even come down to our part of the street, so you would have to put in a pipe if we had to do that. However, it is the potential cost of purchasing all our water in perpetuity that would dramatically affect us in our business. One of the bigger potential problems with this large development that I would like to address is dewatering and groundwater drawdown. Excavation below the water table, like basements, foundations, and subsurface drainage systems, require pumping to keep the site dry. This can create a cone of depression, lowering the water levels over a wide area, which can dry up nearby wells. Dewatering can also lower the water table, causing our wells to yield less water. Overpumping may draw salt water into the aquifer, ruining freshwater wells. Dewatering can release fine soil particles into the aquifer, causing cloudy water that clogs filters and pipes. Disturbed soil can introduce pathogens into the groundwater. Paved surfaces post-construction can limit rainwater from replenishing the aquifer. If any construction project does take place on this site, I would want their dewatering plan and monitoring data. Also, their contact information for the hydrology and environmental manager. Some of my questions are, what is the depth and radius of the proposed dewatering operation? How will the developers mitigate off-site well interference? Where is the pump groundwater being discharged? Will it be tested and treated? Should the construction of this massive project impact the quantity and quality of our water, will the town or the developer be permanently responsible for providing clean water in perpetuity for our homes and farm? How can this be guaranteed into the future? In closing, we have little faith that the developer or the town has the financial or moral ability to guarantee that our wells will not be negatively affected or that they will be able to provide the quantity and quality of our water that we need and now enjoy should our wells get depleted or contaminated. Thank you for your attention to these matters.
Thank you.
I have a copy.
Yes, that can go on the record.
Okay.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
we can leave that.
Actually,
You sure you have
Thank you very much.
thank you.
I don't know, it's just-
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Peter Rochford. I live on Detroit Avenue. I know some of the questions I have are sort of redundant, but I'll kind of go through them real quickly because I don't want to take the time with the board. One of the things out of the studies of the impact on this development is on fire department, first responders, as we all know what happened in Fall River and with the fire at that location of the nursing home. Now, were you going to require to hire more EMTs, fire officials, firemen? As I know, a friend of mine is on the Fall River Fire Department, and they've had 11 new firemen employed for the city. I don't want to quote the fire chief, but I understand that the water pressure for the sprinkler system may affect the capacity of that proposed development. Like, would the water pressure be like on the 4th floor of the apartment buildings? On the public transportation service, Rhode Island Transit Authorities has stated that there's no plans for the future service in the area. Is this a smart planning to build a large affordable housing development with no current or future public transportation? Also, the Warren Time Gazette reported on August 27th, is I quote, "The recent announcement of by Ripka plans to trim the frequency of stops and potentially eliminate entire routes hasn't been unnoticed by the advocates of towns, states, including Warren." It also stated that it's proposed to cut service offered in Warren, including the elimination of Route 61X, that's Tiverton, East Bay, Park and Ride, and a reduction of weekly and weekend of stops on Route 60, the Providence and Newport, and for every 30 minutes daily between 35 or 60 minutes. One is the going on about the granite curbing that they're proposed to use a contract, a berm, an asphalt berm. Who's going to be responsible for repairs of the berm if it's not the CREN? As we know, the Controlling Street Runoff plans approves the variance to install the cheaper short-term asphalt curbing. Yet the town or the developer requested. One on bonds. I do know that they are installing a sewer on Denver and on Kennicott. But it did note on the site plan that there's a gas line proposed to go to Charles Street. Now, Charles Street, I understand, is a state road. So who's going to be issuing the bonds for this type of work? One thing that I'm going to state is I've been in the construction industry for 48 years. I've managed 7 subdivisions. I've done commercial buildings. I've done commercial tenant build out. And one thing I noticed on the plan, I've just gone through it briefly, is the one location that I understand there are 3 dumpster locations. One of them, this is for the apartment building. I understand the town will take care of the 12 houses, but the apartment building is going to be a private entity with a contractor for trash removal. But on one of the plans, it shows one of the dumpsters enclosure encroaching onto the setback. Now, if they eliminate that dumpster pad, now you're leaving just 2 areas for 108 residents. I think that's going to be an awful lot of trash in that area. And the last I want to say is that I know 5 years ago, the developer came in and did some removal of soil for a staging area. My understanding, I'm not quite sure, but the material they put in there 5 years ago, nothing has grown on that area at all. If the planning board just want to take a ride by, look at that development, that area, you can see how much has grown, the vegetation there, but that one area is nothing growing, not maybe a couple little weeds. Now that is the area where one of the retention ponds are going to go. Now, if this is going to be excavated, where is this material going to go? Is it going to be used on the site? Is it going to be hauled off? These are the things that should be in question when if they start this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening. Good evening. My name is David Oliveira. I live at 175 Schoolhouse Road. I'm also the president of Warren Citizens for Appropriate Development. Just to recap, I mean, our name says it all. We understand that development may be necessary, but as the saying goes, there's a time and place for everything. This isn't the place for the project of this magnitude. There's been a recently updated traffic report that once again says there'll be no impact on the neighborhood, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Any of those of us that live in the area, and I live at Schoolhouse Road, which is at the intersection of Poverty Corner. The traffic studies do not go up that street. Anyone who lives in that area knows that these people, at one point, there was a discussion of, oh yeah, these folks are going to all spill into Child Street when they leave this development. Maybe the first day they live there, but once they figure out that if they go the other way, they can go up Schoolhouse Road or down Schoolhouse Road and get to 136, or cut across and go along Poverty Corner to Bushy Road, they can get to Route 6. Because I chose to live there, I knew what the traffic was going to be, and it's exactly what it is. From 7 in the morning, maybe 6:30, let's say 6, from 6 to 9 in the morning, there's commuter traffic, people leaving town, going to their jobs or school or wherever they're going. And it quiets down a bit during the day, although there is some traffic. And then at night, again, from maybe about 5 o'clock to 7:30, you have people in the opposite direction coming back into town. So between myself and my neighbor, I've lived there 15 years. Between the two of us, we've had cars up on our lawn at least 10 times. One car struck her house, went right up to the front stairs. And so these are things that are not included in this traffic study, but there are issues on that street. We noticed the police has had more presence recently. They're pulling people over, which is great because there's people flying up and down that street. Our mailbox, most of us on that street are across the street from us. I have 3 daughters. I never let them get the mail, even though they pleaded. Can I go get the mail? Absolutely not, because I've been almost hit myself with people turning onto Schoolhouse, taking a right, and just blowing the stop sign because they look up, they don't see anybody coming, they blow the stop sign. And so, yes, we don't have, there are some dangerous spots in town. This is one of them. And then you lead down to the bridge. And as my neighbor, Mr. Villa, spoke last time, the speed limit down there is 15 miles an hour. There aren't many cars going 15 miles an hour. The only reason they might be going 15 miles an hour is the bridge is too narrow and then they're stuck, so they have to slow down. So again, these are areas of major concern. How 200 additional cars cannot affect the neighborhood that has small rural roads, no sidewalks. There are farm tractors and things coming by. And then of course there's people, again, driving faster and not doing what they're supposed to do. But again, we have seen neighborhood that is what we want as a town. There are a lot of younger kids in this neighborhood now, new families coming in who have bought properties. And so if we're going to be portrayed in like Yankee Magazine as this wonderful small town, well, it needs to be safe. And so again, these are safety concerns for the, again, traffic study's been done for the immediate neighborhood. I'm not that far outside that neighborhood. I'm telling you right now, that will affect that whole corridor on Schoolhouse Road up and down, without a doubt. That was my one concern. And the concern, again, of what are the effects to the taxpayers of this town, maybe not today, but long-term. What are the long-term effects of this town? Again, we have been involved with Bristol building a new high school. I don't know if folks know, but the plan of that high school was based upon the population decrease. They're projecting a population decrease. So here we are, we've approved Penny Lane. If this goes through, we've got a potential for considerably larger amount of students. And so what happens 10 years from now, 5 years from now? Who's going to take the brunt of that cost? Taxpayers? How much more are the taxpayers going to take to allow other people to benefit from our town? It should be a give and take, right? We should be good for the town, good for the developer, good for the, community. And there's more cons than pros here. Absolutely. If you put them all together, there's no 2 ways about it. What's my last thing here? Oh yeah. So the only reason why this has been such a long discussion is because, again, it's being developed using the bare minimum of affordable housing. And then at one point we're told like, wow, this is being done for the town. What a good thing this is for the town. How's it good for us? 30 apartments for 30 years. That's all we're getting. After 30 years, affordable's gone. They could change it. They can do whatever they want. How is that? Again, might not affect us today, maybe not the next 5 years, 10 years, but 30 years from now, we've got this huge development that's ruined the neighborhood. And on top of that, they don't even have to keep it affordable anymore. What's in it for us? What's in it for the long haul for us? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but it doesn't look good. The grand total of everything doesn't look good. So I know that, again, per the Superior Court case, they, got approval of the master plan, but the next consideration is that does the town, again, the infrastructure, what is it going to do to our natural resources? All those things still have to be considered before this can be allowed to move forward. So we, as a group, we have 1,200 members. And again, we've been to various, whether it's walkabouts or things around town, trying to gauge how people feel about this project. Honestly, we haven't met one person who thought it's a great idea. Not a single soul. So clearly, it's not what Warrenites want, right? We are a small town. People who bought in this town because they want to live in a small town. We don't want it all of a sudden to be an urban area. And dropping this project into that area makes it an urban area. Now you might say, well, it's going to be developed over time. Yeah, that might be true, but we're changing the makeup of that. And you know what's going to happen. It'll never go back. Once it's there forever. So we hope that as a group, we hope you hear our concerns and do what's best for our town. Thank you.
Okay, we also received your letter, David, relative to this.
Yes.
And that is in the
In
record.
the packet. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, let's. As soon as he's finished. Are you not? Do you want to let her go first? Okay, yeah. Oh, wait a second, sir. Did you want to speak? Did you want to speak?
Ed Martell, 23 Reservoir Avenue. Lived there for 55 years, so.
Wait a little bit, because it's, we can't hear you.
Perfect, right there. That's good, right there.
There you go.
Right there.
I'm also hard of hearing and legally blind, so bear with me. Lived on Reservoir Avenue for 55 years, so I know the neighborhood. I know what's going on. The last time I spoke about traffic, and I spoke about sewer. Because when this project was originally brought up, there was a concern about the main sewer line. And the survey showed that there was 30% of the sewer line used. I said, was that the average? Was that the low? Was that the high? And just a statement, but I did not get any answer from the developer. What was the numbers? What did they represent? Was it the average flow? Can somebody from the developer tell us? What was the high flow? When was the low flow? Was that between 2 and 4 in the morning? Obviously, it's going to be low. 7 to 9 in the morning, it's going to be high. What was it? Can they answer me my question?
No, well, we're not engaging in a back and forth right now, sir. You simply have to make a statement and they would have a chance to respond after you.
My concern is at the high flow, if we had all those toilets, if you will, or showers and tubs, and the high flow can't take that amount of water. When we flush our toilet and they back up, whose problem is it? Is it the developer? Is it the town? We don't know the answer to that because we didn't get an answer to the question. So apparently I'm still not going to get an answer to that question.
I would say that the town hired an engineering firm to corroborate the findings of the applicant, is my understanding.
Mhm.
And as a consequence, they said that the sewer system has the capability, the town, not the applicant,
Mhm.
to accommodate right now that expected flow from that development. So we got,
And if they can't, who's responsible for making the change? The town. So let's hope the town was right. And I also commented on traffic. It was a one-day traffic survey, February 4th, in the middle of the winter. They said there was no pedestrian traffic. Of course not. Who's walking the streets in the middle of the winter with their dog. There's no sidewalks on Reservoir Avenue, Matthew Court, Baltimore, all those streets that kids are walking on to and from school. So, yes, there's a lot of kids on the streets with no sidewalks. That's dangerous. They mentioned they counted cars. Anybody can stand there with the clicker and count cars. Walk up and down or drive up and down Child Street. It's a problem today. It took us 3 changes of lights to get through the Child Street, Metacom Avenue light. There's a lot of traffic today. They also said this development will have no impact on the amount of traffic. Yes, it will. Somebody's gonna have nothing upstairs to think all those cars won't make a difference on the traffic. We live on Reservoir Avenue, trying to get out of Reservoir Avenue onto Child Street, Route 103. We sit there for a long time. There's cars going that way, cars going that way. It's very difficult to get out of our side street because the traffic already is high. It's only going to get higher. So again, we're expressing our concerns, but we're not getting any facts back to us to understand what these surveys did.
We will respond, the board, once testimony has been given.
Mhm.
So we've taken what you said into consideration. It reinforces what we've heard from a number of other folks in terms of observation of traffic. And in fact, there was another traffic study done by the applicant that added some elements. But equally important is the reality on the ground as seen by people here in Warren. So that's the answer I can give you right
Okay,
now.
my concern is what they told us was taken and they told us what fit their need, not what fit the town's need. And yes, it's your job to understand what we feel and to analyze what they said compared to what we feel and make a proper decision. And I asked the board, thank you for listening to me, and I asked the board, please deny this project. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
First time I talked, I was talking as a business owner. Right now, I'm talking as a member of the Warren Citizens Appropriate Development. I only got 2 little quick things I'd like to ask.
Sure.
Okay, since the town would have to enter into a long-term agreement with the developers to maintain the huge drainage basins and other infrastructures. If the developers have a history of not complying with obligations to maintain drainage systems or properties, what can the town do to guarantee that would not get stuck in the future being liable for such maintenance and cost? Will the town require a long-term maintenance bond to cover the future liabilities of these drainage basins? Okay, the other thing kind of goes back to what I was talking about, the wells. And because it's mostly rock ledge, they're going to be doing a lot of blasting. And we're very concerned about that with our foundations and our wells. Someone did get up and speak a while ago about how a home on Denver experienced a loss of well in their foundation due to blasting, and the town had to come in and fix everything. So just something to think about. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Well, no, I really, yeah, we gotta.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I either overpower. So tonight I'm both a and applying a missing man formation and a missing women formation. My missing man is my other engineer, Dick Pastore, who was supposed to be here and is not here. And then Marissa's partner prepared a memo, which I gave a copy to Bill. And I'm going to give everybody a copy. She excerpted the 1992 comprehensive plan. And she did it just from the plan itself. I actually lived this plan. I was the attorney for the consultants after 1994 that dealt with the comprehensive plan. And then when Fausto was a solicitor, I was the attorney for this board and the zoning board for 4 and 5 years. So I actually can attest that this is not anything but the actual excerpts as I recall of the meeting.
Are you asking for this to be entered into as?
I
as a-
know it would be in the master file of the town, but it's very difficult, unless it's changed a lot, to find all these provisions. The 92, and you just passed the new one.
Well, we're not gonna read this right
No, you're
now.
not gonna read it now. No. I just, it's for the record. In, hopefully in, final argument, final memo, whatever.
I got 2 of them.
The only thing,
Yeah.
for the moment, yeah, it's ironic that you're looking at a 1992 comprehensive plan and it's 2026. But the plan that's the subject of this hearing is the one that would have been vested in 2020. Believe it or not, 5 years ago, this month, Bill and I were here for a planning board meeting on this very application, 2020. So that's where the vesting comes from. There's just one more thing I wanted to give the board. And I'm not shooting for the full decision. A few weeks ago, Judge Lamphia rendered a decision upholding the denial of a comprehensive permit in Westerly. And it was Mr. Landry's firm, but not him, were the attorneys. And I just, as we're thinking about this case, give us and I'll give the stenographer. I'm just reading from page 11 of Judge Lamphria's decision. Because the judge emphasizes that when planning boards are dealing with comprehensive permits, that, and I'll use his language, not mine, to approve the application, the planning board was required to make findings supported by legally competent evidence on the record that the proposed development will have no significant environmental impacts. But one, and there will be no significant negative impacts on the health and safety of current or future residents of the community. In areas not including, not limited to sewage disposal. A lot of boards think that it's they have to make a positive finding. In other words, you got to take the evidence that they give you, and you've got to make a positive finding on those 2 points. If your finding isn't positive, it's actually a denial. And that's what Judge Lampier is saying. And that's what he's saying the Westerly Planning Board did not make positive findings, which then permitted them to deny the application, and he upheld the denial. And the only other thing I have questions about is when the public hearing closes, are we going to be allowed to present a written memorandum or anything that?
No, I think once the public hearing, well, I'll defer to our town solicitor.
In terms of process.
Well, you know, in terms of process, depends on how time goes. It could be a decision tonight.
Okay. Well, let's say there might be a decision tonight. So. Whether you want Mr. Lambie to go first or me. It's up to him.
When?
Who do you want to go first?
Well, my question is the public finished speaking? That's the
Yeah,
first
sure.
question.
There's no one else,
Okay.
so we'll close the public hearing.
One question, so since the board just received the permit material, comprehensive plan material submitted, could you, and they'd have the option to review. Just making the point that the planning board just received the material that was put together on the comprehensive plan language.
Right.
Could you verbally maybe highlight, not read through it, but are there a couple like key excerpts that
Yes.
pertain to this project that you
And-
could
Yeah,
state?
some relate to what you put in yours, or might put in his. report.
Okay,
So-
and before we get going any further, just to answer Mr. Ryan's predicate question, because we're at that stage, I think it's appropriate for him to wrap up his presentation. Unfortunately, he didn't, his expert was unable to attend. That's the first thing. But traditionally, what's happened is the applicant gets the last word
Okay.
before everything's closed, and then the board starts to deliberate.
Okay. I just have to give him a note.
Yeah,
I'd like to make a final comment.
just a minute.
Just because I can't shut up. The comprehensive
Just
plan.
Identify yourself.
I'm Stephen Clark. I'm Point Farm, Warren, Rhode Island. Live at the end of the down past the schools. We've heard a lot of testimony about how the details of runoff, details of environmental planning and environmental litigation and strategies around this project. I think the fundamental problem is one of scale. 2 50-unit apartment buildings in East Warren is simply inappropriate. It is out of scale with the community. It is out of scale with with everything east of Child Street of Metacom Avenue, and it simply should be denied on that alone. The comprehensive plan talks extensively about staying within the patterns of East Warren, maintaining the character of the neighborhoods, the character of the landscape. And this is simply a complete thumb in the eye of those principles. And I think that primarily on the basis alone of just the scale of the proposed project, Penny Lane is at least townhouses. Penny Lane is 100% affordable housing constructed by a nonprofit. That is not what's happening here. This is an attempt to force a oversized proper development onto a piece of land over the community's objection, using the guise of a small minimum amount of affordable housing to accelerate the process against the community's wish. And I urge you to deny the permit.
Thank you, everybody. I just read you the most important part of the of your consideration, again, making positive findings, not just a broad-based acceptance. You actually have to make an affirmative finding. And as to the prior court case, Judge Lampier, do you have that? Judge Lampier in the Superior Court decision found that the master plan stage is only a general outline. Given the application is at master plan stage, this court reviews Shab's decision, keeping in mind that only a general outline of the development's intentions is required. So that's what got us to where we are today. Now, last month,
Excuse me, Mr. Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Are you referring to the case of Winn, W-I-N-N Props LLC versus the town of Westerly?
in which case, first
one, he was referencing Westerly, the one that you gave us with the highlighted.
no, this first one was your case. First quote was the town of Warren versus the State Housing Appeal Board versus Last Ever Realty PC 2023
Okay.
03477.
I just want to make sure we have the citation of the case.
So the Winn case, which I gave her the heading for, is actually Winn Properties, Ocean Club Properties, Crosswind et al. Versus the town of Westerly Planning. So that's the section I read to you. To approve the application, the planning board was required to make positive findings by legally competent evidence on the record that the proposed development will have no negative environmental impacts. We'll stay there for a second. So last month you heard Dr. Spalding testify that his sea level rise extensive studies have been incorporated in CRMC's design book. And the applicant will say, well, that's not really codified. But I suggest that that is codified in that people are designing homes in the coastal region based upon sea level rise to make sure they're building the appropriate houses. And so he also has done, as you know, and went through extensively the study of Warren itself. The testimony presented by, I'll call a permitting expert last month, concluded that DEM somehow tentatively approved the permit and probably violated almost all the criteria you had to meet to get the DEM permit. So that issue probably won't be resolved by this board, obviously. but it might be resolved down the road. Now, you've heard of the 12 gifts of Christmas, including a partridge in a pear tree. This application is the 13 requests for variances and waivers, but there's no partridge in the pear tree. There's some pretty extensive requests. And the one that this planner spent a lot of time on in her report, and then that's in your 1992 handout I just gave you, is that the apartment buildings especially are totally out of character and would be in character in the eastern part of New York City, but they're not in character of the eastern part of Warren. Now, that 1992 comprehensive plan, which I gave you, has extensive discussions of what's called Area 4. Area 4 runs to the Kickapoo River. And this is Area 4. R10, R40. It goes through detailed analysis of every aspect of Area 4, which is the very area you're discussing. The amount of impervious pavement where they want a waiver obviously goes with the extent of the project is so big. But going with that is less islands, less trees, and so forth. So you're actually exaggerating the negative impact by a lot of the waivers they're seeking. The concrete curb is kind of an obvious one. If you do bituminous curb, the snowplows will demolish the bituminous curb in short order. That changes all the drainage plan that's been presented to the board. The drainage, especially in the winter with snow and ice, will go in a completely different pattern with bituminous breakthrough than it ever would with curbs. The getting back to the height of the buildings, I'm reading from your own.
It sounds like Mr. Ryan is giving his final closing statement, understanding it started out.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're not done with the evidence. We haven't heard from the town's experts. We haven't had a chance to follow based on. This is not the time.
Okay.
I was under the impression that you had finished.
Pardon me?
I was under the impression that you had finished.
We absolutely have not finished. We've stated this on the record repeatedly, that we reserve the right to respond to what's being presented by the objectors. We didn't get to do it last month. We had submitted.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're
exhibits.
going to get to respond.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. You can go forward with the presentation that you have to rebut, and then Mr. Ryan can wrap up afterwards.
Well, you
Okay.
can wrap up now.
Well,
I don't.
You can't have it
I'm
both
not
ways.
with it.
All right, if you got some other things to put on, you wanna rebut, that's okay. We'll close it down.
Why don't we let him?
Go ahead.
I think
Yeah,
he's
no,
got-
I
I thought, for example, the town had a sewer expert to testify. But
We have him here for questions only.
Oh.
We're not, he's put in his memos and
he sat next to me, so I
Yeah.
thought he might be a live witness.
we've got Mr. Himlin here. He'll be able to answer any questions you may have. He has his stuff in. But we were about to have him make a presentation.
Okay.
I don't even know how appropriate that is, but go ahead.
Mr. DeSisto, I recall you mentioning in the last hearing, but we were talking about how much longer it would take.
You'd be on the
We had two
microphone.
witnesses here, and they were gonna take a long time, so I don't know where that came from. I don't care if they testify or not.
Okay, I actually have a different remembrance of that, but I'll go with it. We have Mr. Himlin here, and I keep forgetting this gentleman's name. Andy Kleins. They're here to answer any questions. They put their memos in. I'm not so sure they need to make a full presentation. But if the board members have any questions, for them, they'd be happy to answer them.
We haven't seen a memo from Mr. Hemlands on this preliminary plan. So one back in the.
That's correct. That's the one he's relying on. Nothing's changed since then.
One from years.
And we did discuss that. Yes. There's no new memo. However, he's here to discuss the memo that's in the record. If it's necessary. But that's up to the board.
Did you want to rebut now or?
Yes, I do.
So, no, that's what we asked for. First of all, I think we have to close the public hearing at this point.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair, we got a couple of rebuttal witnesses here. And I'd like to start by calling Todd Brayton, our traffic expert. Todd here. Okay, Mr. Brayton, could he be resworn, please?
We decided we weren't going to do that expert.
Yeah, we don't,
Testimony.
you don't need to say he just testified.
Mr. Brayton, since you last testified, I think it was back during the June session of the planning board, you've submitted 2 additional traffic reports, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the first one you submitted was back on July 25th, 2025, correct?
July 23rd, 2025.
Okay, and the second one was on September 17th, 2025, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I'd like you to explain to the board, and give you some room here, what the purpose of the first report was, the September 17th report, and what issues you addressed, including the additional work that you conducted and the conclusions that were reached in connection with that particular July report.
So the July 23rd, 2025 additional analysis letter had a few different things in there. So the first thing was we actually received crash data from the Warren Police Department. And then that data was from January 1st, 2022 through approximately July 10th, 2025. And for the study area for our project, which is from Child Street, the intersection of Connecticut Avenue with Child Street to the intersection of Connecticut Avenue with Schoolhouse Road, there were only 2 crashes in that time, both at the intersection of Connecticut Avenue and Schoolhouse Road. We also received crash data from the police department for Schoolhouse Road between Market Street and the Swansea Town Line. For the entire length of Schoolhouse Road, which is about 1.4 miles. And for that 1.4 mile length, there were 16 crashes in that on Schoolhouse Road for that 3.5 year period. They were kind of spread out over the course of the road. There was one at the Schoolhouse Road and Birch Swamp Road intersection, one at the intersection of Schoolhouse Road and Poverty Corner Road, 9 between Market Street and Connecticut Avenue, and 5 between between Connecticut Avenue and Swansea Town Line. So the number of crashes over this, again, 1.4 mile segment, roadway segment for 3.5 years does not indicate the presence of unusual conditions. that might be worsened by the proposed residential development. In response to one of the public members talking about the intersection of Connecticut Avenue and Buffalo Avenue, we did counts in July, so obviously during the summer, which we have done again, so I can get to that later. But so based on those counts in July, we did a capacity analysis, which I kind of mentioned the first time I was here. Relies on a concept of level of service, level of service A being the most favorable, level of service F being the least favorable. And for the peak hours in the AM and the PM for that intersection of Connecticut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, the level of service for A for the no build scenario, as well as A for the build scenario. So no change in level of service.
Could you explain what you mean by the no build scenario and the build scenario?
So the no build scenario is the counts that were counted to existing additions without the development traffic. And the build is actually adding the development traffic to those existing counts for the build condition.
Can you explain why in table 1 and table 2, you have Connecticut Avenue, Denver Avenue, Connecticut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, Connecticut Avenue, and Child Street in both those tables. But then when we go to tables 3 and 4, you only have Connecticut Avenue and Buffalo Avenue.
So you're referring, this is the July 23rd?
No, I'm referring to the September 17th. We've gone through the July 23rd.
We have not.
We didn't.
No.
I have
His
not
presentation.
3 traffic reports. There was no meeting in July. We submitted his July 23 report before the July meeting. The July meeting was canceled. We never got a chance to present
Okay.
Mr. Brayton at the August meeting. The report's been with the town for 2 months. We're presenting it now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Brayton.
Okay. So as I said, no change in level of service A for that intersection of Connecticut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue. We also looked at pedestrian access to and from the proposed development. So the Bristol Warren Regional School District has a policy in terms of providing bus transportation.
Mr. Brayton, can I interrupt you? You may have, you talked about the AM peak hour. I'm not sure you got a chance to explain the PM peak hour.
I think it was AM and PM. I think I mentioned.
Okay,
Yeah.
you did it together.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the Bristol Warren Regional School District policy is that elementary students living more than 1/2 mile from school and middle school students living more than 1 mile from school would be provided bus transportation. So the Hugh Cole Elementary School is approximately 1 mile from the development, and Kickamute Middle School is approximately 2/3 of a mile. So any elementary school student should be provided bus transportation. However, middle school students may not be provided bus transportation. So if the middle school students would need to walk from this development to the middle school, they would be able to do so using the proposed Dallas Avenue road that's to the between the development and Denver Avenue. Then they would use Denver Avenue and then Detroit Avenue to get to Child Street.
Mr. President. Hi, Mary. School bus drops students off at the corner of Child and Kennecott Avenue, and the children walk down the street. Either that or parents wait for them in cars on Kennecott Avenue.
I mean, can you elaborate on how that would impact your statements you just made if the children still have to walk down the road from Child Street?
In certain, what that, they would still be able to walk on Child Street. There's sidewalks.
Well,
There's no sidewalks.
There's sidewalks on Child Street.
Kennecott, not Child Street, walking from
Kennecott.
Child Street down Kennecott.
Kennecott.
Or Detroit, either one, there's no sidewalk.
And I think, you know, just to reinforce that, the past 90 days, I never have to drive down Kennecott. I've driven down there a total of over 75 times. And with a high level of confidence, over 50% of the time, there's pedestrian traffic on that road, on the sides of the roads. And I've seen children there before. So that pedestrian traffic that we know is there for a fact, does that change your statement knowing the kids get dropped off at Child in Connecticut and have to walk down that road? Or do you still stick to that statement?
They still have the opportunity to use the path I mentioned to get to school, to walk. They don't need to walk in Connecticut Avenue.
So you're saying a child that gets dropped off on Kinnicut and Child Street should not walk down Kinnicut?
I don't know who gets dropped off there and where they're going, so I can't really state where they would be walking to.
Well, we're referring to children who would live in that area as well as the ones who would potentially live in this proposed development. So we're talking about a significant increase in pedestrian traffic as a result of the proposed development, as well as the existing condition where students have to walk down Kinnicut because the buses don't go down to Kinnicut, which your presentation is predicated on the idea that they'd be driving down Kinnicut in a bus as opposed to walking.
The only buses that travel on Kinnicut Avenue are empty, going to the school and going back to the barn.
Okay. But so my statement that the pedestrians, students, anyone actually walking from this development to get to Child Street or to the schools do not need to use Connecticut Avenue, is what I
But they
said.
do. That's the, they
I'm
do
sorry,
use.
I'm saying they don't, the pedestrians from this development that's proposed do not need to walk Connecticut Avenue.
How do you
How
want them to
did they
get there?
get there?
How do you guarantee that? That you just say it's a subjective, right? They do not, but how do we guarantee that they're not going to use it? For me, it's, I drive down that road all the time. It's a very convenient road. I see pedestrian traffic is significantly high there. If it's over 50% of the time of my travels down there, I see pedestrians walking on the side of that road.
Well, I think when I get to the next letter, I can talk about what we counted for pedestrians, but
But I don't know if we,
I cannot guarantee that people will not walk in Connecticut Avenue for this development. I can't.
but there's a possibility that people from the development will be traveling from Connecticut down to Child Street or elsewhere by way of Connecticut, because
It's possible, yes.
It's possible.
Can I, yes, I think that what the board members are trying to stress is that the obvious route to the front of the development is Connecticut, and it's not necessarily reasonable to think that people are going to leave the obvious route and go some other route that you believe is going to happen without there being some reason for that to happen. And so we're trying to find out why you're saying that they won't be walking on Connecticut.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because the roads that I mentioned will have less traffic than Connecticut.
But doesn't it not go to like if you went down that, yeah, if you went down Detroit Avenue, doesn't it go into the single family entrances as opposed to the main entrance of the apartment complex? So if they would, I would think that they would walk down Connecticut to the front of the apartment complex instead of going into other neighborhoods and then cutting back to Connecticut to go back around. I think it's one of these things where we're trying to find out what the logic is to presume that under no circumstance, the seemingly most obvious route would not be used.
I don't think he said under no circumstance.
Okay, yeah, I don't.
He said
Again,
that
it's
there's
a,
an
it's a
alternative.
subjective assumption.
Yeah, it is by a lot of people.
Well, not a lot of people, by your expert.
Well, let me ask my expert a couple of questions. Is there anything new about there not being any sidewalks in this part of Warren?
I'm not sure exactly what you mean, but it's typical for roads not to have sidewalks.
So this development is not creating an issue where there are no sidewalks for people who go to the nearest school to walk on if they want to take the most direct route and not go a safer route, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And that's not being caused by this development, right?
No, it is not.
And the town has never taken steps to put any sidewalks in that area, to your knowledge, correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
And would you object, would you as a traffic expert object to the town taking steps if they felt that there was a dangerous situation there with putting sidewalks to the school from this whole part of town?
No, I would not.
So I mean, back to the side, I mean, as far as the pedestrian traffic, I still don't think I'm following, 'cause I mean, the sidewalks is, Coder versus Barrington made that obvious, right? The sidewalks isn't a grounds for dismissal or like where we can rule just on the sidewalks alone. But knowing there's pedestrian traffic, sidewalks aside, what are we doing to mitigate the risk or to improve the safety for the public as we add 200 or 100+ units here with increased pedestrian traffic going to the schools? Like, is there any mitigating risk that you're recommending to make this a safer environment?
Well, as Mr. Landry said, if there was an opportunity to put sidewalks in on Connecticut Avenue, that certainly would be a great thing.
At town expense
These are 1 and 2 bedroom unit apartments.
that have cars that go up and down the streets.
Yeah, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. So
That have cars that go up and down
You'll
the
get
streets.
some, but the traffic counts have been determined about how many new vehicles that there are coming from this development.
I don't see that on your traffic study, where you've added any new vehicles, got a 0.
Yeah, well, let me have Mr. Brayton explain, what is the term, level A, level of service come from?
So level of service, that's, can actually get the correct reference. So level of service, it's from the Highway Capacity Manual, which is the guideline that's used by traffic engineers around the entire country. Since used for referencing traffic operations. So specifically, concept of level of service is a qualitative measure describing operational conditions of traffic based on delay, in this case, at intersections. So level of service A, as I mentioned earlier, is the most favorable conditions. Level of service F is the least favorable conditions.
Okay, and that's not something you made up. This is what all traffic engineers deal with, correct?
Yes.
And is that based on some type of trip generation report that takes a particular type of housing and gives you what the projection is for the number of additional trips that will emanate from that?
So the level of service highway capacity manual is based on traffic counts and trip generation, adding them together to come up with what would be the build condition.
Okay, is that generally followed by all traffic authorities, including the state of Rhode Island DOT?
Yes.
That's the Bible, if you will, of traffic generation.
For a highway capacity manual is not trip generation. That's a different document. But trip generation is also an industry standard by the Institute of Transportation Engineers.
And that's the standard best practices, aggregate information as to
Yes.
what type of housing produces how many trips. correct?
Yes.
And you've indicated the additional trips on your report, not something you took out of your mind, but based on the trip capacity of the capacity manual, correct? Trip
Yes.
generation.
Trip generation, yes.
That's done by OSHA or whatever the name, the acronym is for the Association of
I do.
Safety Experts,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Officials.
Yes.
Is that- And that's where you base the estimates of the additional trips of vehicles, correct?
yes.
Where in the report is that located?
So that's in the original report, in the original traffic report.
But these are updates that involve additional intersections, correct?
Yes,
This one that you did in July, the additional intersection you considered was Buffalo Avenue, correct?
That's
And you've
correct.
got trip generation from those locations.
yes.
Are we now into September 17th?
Yeah, we'll go on to September 17th. By the way, of the two traffic studies we've talked about so far, one I believe there were the initial traffic reports back at the master plan stage of review, correct? Those
Yes.
have been submitted. And then more recently, as I understand it, there was one in February of 2025. And then one in July of 2025, correct?
February 2025 is the full traffic study. July 2025 was the additional analysis that I mentioned earlier.
And so one of those was while the children are in school, correct? The February
Yes,
and the July one, the children were not in school.
that's correct.
Now, have you since performed, and we have submitted previously to the board, an updated traffic study dated September 17th, I believe, that updates the traffic counts and levels of service for the AM and PM peak hours, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's the significance of a peak hour analysis?
So the peak hour analysis is when the traffic volumes are at the highest. So that's what we analyze and do our studies at those peak hours, because whatever impacts you would have there would be less at other parts of the day when the traffic is lower.
So the traffic analysis is based on a worst case scenario of the highest traffic counts, correct?
Yes.
So why don't you tell me what you did in connection with your most recent September 17th, 2025, and that was when the kids were in school, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So a little more background. So obviously this has been mentioned tonight and previously about only having counts on one day. So it is typical when you do a traffic study such as this is that you would count one day. But even before this study I'm going to get into, we also had done the original traffic report back in 2019, and we had counts from that time in June of 2019 when school was in session. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So what we did is we went out and we got new counts at the intersections of Connecticut Avenue with Denver Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, and Child Street. So this was on Wednesday, September 10th, when school was in session, just a couple weeks ago. So we looked at the traffic volumes that were counted on September 10th, 2025 versus traffic that was counted on February 4th, 2025, which was the most recent full traffic report, as well as June 6th, 2019, which was our original traffic report. So based on those counts, and just to clarify a little bit, so those counts that were done in those times were Connecticut Avenue and Denver Avenue and Connecticut Avenue and Child Street. So the comparing September 2025 to February 2025, the volumes were actually very close. So at total entering vehicles at Connecticut Avenue and Denver Avenue were 90 in the AM peak hour on September 10th, and February 4th, 2025, it was 86. So almost the same. And then in June 2019, there actually were 121. So it actually, when our original report, there was actually more traffic at that intersection. So the other intersection, Connecticut Avenue and Child Street, total entering vehicles September were 834, and in February there were 822. So a very small difference. And again, in June 2019, the actual volumes were 845, so they were a little bit higher. So that was for the AM peak hour. For the PM peak hour, Connecticut Avenue and Denver Avenue, there were 97 vehicles in 2025, but so there were 67 in February of 2025, but there were 121 in June of 2019. Connecticut Avenue and Child Street, total entering vehicles in September, 1,057. In February, there were 971, but in June of 2019, there were 1,097. So the reason I'm kind of referencing all these different times is just to kind of show that the traffic, it's not going to be the same every day you count, but it's similar. So in terms of our analysis that we had done, an original report based on the 2019 data, a revised analysis based on the February 2025 data, and then these new counts. But the analysis that we had done showed that there'd be no impacts and the level of service were good at these intersections. So Buffalo Avenue, when we did that, when we actually did it was the middle of summer, so we couldn't count during school, so we went back again. So comparing those volumes, Connecticut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, again, total entering vehicles in the AM, there were 95 in September and 67 in July. In the AM, in the PM, there were 98 at Connecticut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, 98 in September 25, 89 in July. So the volumes, as you might anticipate during the peaks, are a little bit higher in September. So what we did for that is that we went and did updated capacity analysis. So what I kind of talked about before was based in July. We did it again based on the September volumes, again, when school was in session. And that analysis shows, again, based level of service, A, for that intersection for all approaches in the AM and PM peak hour, no change in level of service for either peak hour.
So there's no new cars coming in from this development?
No, there's new cars, but I'm saying that the impact, the change is minimal. It's like,
So in other words, for example, well, you don't have it available for Child Street for July 22nd, but for Kinnicut and Buffalo, you went from 89 to 98. That seems hard to conform with what I've seen on those streets during the times, the peak hours of school being in session. Somebody mentioned 3 times through the lights, you have to wait to get this way or to come the other way during the peak hours. July, you don't experience that. So these figures are baffling in terms of observation and on the ground, 4 wheels trying to get through this area at those peak hours. So to go from only 89 to 98 seems a small increase for a large volume of traffic based on observation.
Again, these were counts that were actually physically taken. People had mentioned they counting cars to come up with these numbers, so it's what's there.
Who counted?
I'm sorry?
Who did the count?
There were actually a couple of different firms we've used. One is PDI, Precision Data Industries, and the other is Transportation Data Corporation.
And they used a machine, right, to collect that
So
data?
there's different ways of doing it. You can use machines, either by hand or you can use video.
I saw the machines there the other week, so
Yeah, so-
that's the data they collected.
I'm sorry?
So they collected,
Yes.
that's the intersection?
Yes.
Why didn't you guys look at Child Street? Because from your original submission, Child Street had a level of service of C, right, going southbound. Did you guys relook at that recently, or?
One of the reasons we didn't look at it again is that your traffic peer review analysis was that those intersections were working at an acceptable level of service. And so but you answered the question.
Yeah. So we didn't actually redo the analysis for Child Street because the volumes that were taken in September 2025 were actually less than what we had done for our original report and very similar to what we had done for our February report, which I didn't mention earlier. I mentioned, I think, previously, but we did also expand those February counts because February can be lower than other parts of the year. We had expanded that with a seasonal factor to make it look more like what it would be other parts of the year. So the reason we didn't just redo the analysis because we've already shown that there's no change in level of service and the level of service are acceptable at those intersections.
And then with Buffalo and Connecticut being at a high levels of A, right, it's around what, 9 and change. So, and let's assume your projections are wrong and there's more traffic and we go to a level of service of B. What does that mean just for our education on what now, if not going by what you say, it's going to be a level of service A, it becomes a level of service B. What does that mean for us as a community?
So level of service B is also, so A, like I said, most favorable, F being least favorable. So A, I mean, the delay is the lowest. So in this case, it was less than 10 seconds a vehicle. So once you start getting to level service B, then it's between, and I don't know if I'm gonna have that, I can find it, but it's a slightly increased delay per vehicle. So it might be, say, 10 to 15 seconds. So then C is gonna be a little bit more, D is gonna be a little bit more. Typically, if you're level service D or better, that's considered acceptable. When you get to level service E, then you're starting to getting close to not operating well, and typically level service F means that the intersection is not operating well.
And as level of service increases, is there any guidance for like precautionary measures that should be taken for pedestrian traffic in those intersections?
Not as it relates to level of service of the highway capacity manual, no.
Okay, thank you.
So on these numbers, these are the counts that were out there when on these dates, right?
Yes.
How many more vehicles would there be? So at Kennecott Avenue and Denver Avenue on September 10th, there was 90. How many more vehicles would there be with this development?
I could find that. That might take me a little time to find that information because that's in.
Is it gonna double? Is there's gonna be, because there's 100 units, 100?
Yeah.
Is there gonna be, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, we're now on 17. table 3 and table 4 say Kinnicut Avenue, Buffalo Avenue, but they don't have anything about Kinnicut Avenue, Denver, and more crucially, nothing about Kinnicut Avenue and Child Street for the build, no build.
Right.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so that's what I just mentioned. So the reason we did not do that update the capacity analysis for that intersection was because of what we have already done before shows that there's no impacts and the intersections operate at acceptable levels of service.
Shows that there's
But-
no
but-
impact. So you put in Kinnicut and Buffalo, but not Kinnicut and Child?
Yeah, so
Child is the main artery. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the town between Western and Eastern Warren. I mean, quite frankly, that's an incredibly important street, as is Schoolhouse, as Mr. Olivera mentioned, which is not included in this transportation study, but which would be absolutely and directly impacted by this development.
Right, but
So-
we have looked at those intersections, as I said. The reason we did not look at it again, we did look at it previously twice in the original report and in the updated report. We looked at those intersections and there's no change in level of service.
So but the question that Terry asked is,
Right, so
how
there
many
hasn't
cars?
been
What are
today.
we talking
there isn't.
about? And, you know,
But when
if
you
you've
go
got
to the amount of
1,000
cars, why wouldn't there be?
if you've got 1,057, how many more cars are going to be making that turn after this proposed development would be built?
You've got 1.5 cars per unit.
So again, I can get that information if you want specific.
I mean,
just maybe look
that's
at it,
kind of critical
but
to the
what I can-
testimony.
What I
quite
can share is, so for the total trip generation from, which I had went through back in June, I guess it was. So for the total trip generation, so which is mean all the trips that are coming from this development, in the peak hour. So in the morning peak hour, so this counts the 108 apartments, it counts the 8 single families, it counts the additional 4, so total of 12. And then it also counts, I think there were 4 previously approved single family units, so a total of 16 single family. So based on that, there would be 12 entering vehicles and 40 exiting vehicles. So that's total going into the development coming from the north from Schoolhouse Road or coming from the south from Child Street. In the PM peak hour for the same 108 units and 16 single families, there would be 35 entering vehicles and 23 exiting vehicles. So that's the total number. So those numbers get reduced as you get further away. So some of the traffic's going north, some of the traffic's going south, and as they get to sort of different intersections, that gets reduced.
Okay.
So that there are, so in those numbers, it's much less traffic than, so like about 1,000 vehicles at Child Street, it's maybe,
Right. We're talking,
much
you're-
less.
You're saying there are, for example, in the morning, 40 and 15. So we've got 55 added vehicles out of a place that has in one building alone, 54 units.
That's correct.
That seems hard to fathom.
That's based on the numbers that are in that trip generation. They've done
Yeah,
thousands of
well, again,
studies.
Okay, so I mean, I get it, you know, you're operating on a system that has that determines X number based on Y.
Yes.
But it's a little baffling that that would be considered, that development would be considered, even 54 vehicles would be considered no impact.
It's half again what's out there.
It's got an impact. It's going to happen. It would happen.
Not based on our analysis for level of service.
No,
Well,
No.
I guess that's,
traffic operations are operating on highest level possible. Yes, sorry. We've never said there's no impact, correct?
I've said there's no impact to the level of service.
No impact to the level of service, meaning that you take all of these vehicles,
okay,
and
please,
you're not
please.
changing the fact that you end up with the highest of every possible category in terms of the level of service, the way vehicles are moving, stopping, waiting, delaying. There's a level of traffic in this area in which this is not impacting a very
satisfactory program in terms of how vehicles are moving. Is that accurate?
Yes,
And that's not you coming up with that. That's based on what any traffic engineer would have come up with looking at the same situation.
that's correct. And I believe the peer reviewer agreed with our analysis as well.
And just for the record, how does speed play into that? Because I think I read somewhere that the speed there, when one of the studies was done, was 35 miles per hour, which would be 10 miles over the speed limit. And separate from the level of service, is there a way we should be looking at that for impact?
The speed does not impact the level of service at intersections.
So you're just using speed for sight distance?
So, for site distance, we did look at site distance based on the design speed, which was based on the 85th percentile, and the site distance is fine at the proposed driveway or for the development.
Oh,
So
does the study take into account Amazon and other delivery vehicles beyond just the residents?
yeah, to take all traffic going to the development.
All traffic.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Just one more thing, and you did conclude at the suggestion of the peer reviewer, you got the accident data and you concluded that there's nothing particularly unusual about this neighborhood in terms of the traffic history in this area.
That's correct.
Traffic accident history or any pedestrian danger or so forth.
That's correct, yes. And actually, before you go on, so I had mentioned I referenced it earlier. So, excuse me. So in these counts that were done in September of 2025, so with the pedestrians were also counted at these intersections. So at Connecticut Avenue and Child Street, there were a total of 14 pedestrians and 9 bicycles counted over 6.5 hours that we did the counts for. At Connecticut Avenue in Buffalo, there are 15 pedestrians and 2 bicycles. At Connecticut and Denver, there are 11 pedestrians and 13 bicycles. So what this equates to is approximately 2 pedestrians per hour at these intersections and pretty much 2 or less bicycles per hour at these intersections. So there were not a lot of pedestrians that were counted.
Does that account for people walking across a street to get to the mailbox?
It was counted at the intersections and not counted at individual driveways, no.
Now, is there a pedestrian level of service as far as taking in consideration the lack of sidewalks and the pedestrian traffic?
So pedestrian level service, we did not do that, although I would say that they would be level service A for any pedestrian level service because the pedestrians are so low and the volumes of vehicle traffic is so
And then
low.
with this being affordable housing, assuming that affordable housing would use public transportation, would you assume that would have no change in the level of service or the pedestrian level of service?
We did not, in our analysis, we did not account for public transportation. We didn't, because typically if you have public transportation, your trip generation actually goes down because more people are walking, but we assume
But the
that they
pedestrian
wouldn't.
level of service would increase,
It-
therefore,
Not
right?
necessarily, there may be more pedestrians, the level of service may not change.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Didn't have any?
Did you have another,
Do I have another witness? Yes, Mr. Tom Principe, please. Thank you. I think Mr. Principe may need there are 2 exhibits that we would like to have him look at.
Before Mr. Principe gets going, Ms. Stanley, how are you?
and I did want to note that by advice of council, we're going to end this meeting at 9. It's not just we can't just keep rolling on this thing. So if we are not able to get through everything, we'll have to carry this over next.
I understand, and we'll provide any, if that becomes necessary, we'll extend the time period for decision.
Okay.
Just give me a moment, Mr. Principe, please.
Excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Princeby, I want to start off, there was some testimony last month at a hearing concerning the Rhode Island DEM approval. And I have some questions for you about the Rhode Island DEM approval. First of all, what types of information did you provide to DEM before that approval was granted?
Yeah, so again, there was multiple documents that we had to provide to Rhode Island DEM, multiple sets of plans, calculations, what's called an SESC, a soil erosion and sedimentation control plan, a phasing plan. There was a lot of different documents. I know we had another witness come up, talk about some of the issues she had with some of the drainage, but I mean, it's a pretty substantial package. I know we don't have all night here. I don't want to go through it, but there's multiple documents and it's public record on DEM, on our permit itself. Again, I just wanted, again, for the record too, and for the public, it's a wetlands permit, it's a RIPDES permit, and it's a UIC permit. So
That-
we have separate permits.
That is for the construction portion of the project?
The site, yeah, so site drainage, soil erosion, and in those I mean, there's so many papers. And in those documents, it holds the developer accountable, you know, during construction, includes the manager inspection process, certification processes. So in that document, there's so much literature in there to make sure that the project is done per the approved plans itself.
So are there basements in these apartment buildings with sump pumps?
I'm sorry?
Are there basements and sump pumps in these apartment buildings?
No, not that I'm aware of.
What's the foundation?
What's that?
What kind of foundation are you using for the apartment buildings?
It's probably gonna be slab on grade or cross wall.
For a four-story building?
What's that? Cross wall? Yeah.
So no sump pumps will be in operation
Not that I'm-
underneath.
Not that I'm aware of. And again, this is, if you look at the topography, I know we have ledge at the center of the property, but again, there's no groundwater up at the center of the property. The groundwater, we have wetlands off to the west, and then there's actually pretty decent sandy soil off to the east on Kinnick Ave, and the water table is actually, it's not as bad. I think it's, I believe, 5 or 6 feet. So we didn't anticipate any significant dewatering issues, and that's something that the DEM looks at collectively with the soil testing. Once because we had to provide all that data to them. So like I said, it's a very substantial file with the DEM permits that we already received.
Okay, so
A quick question.
Yeah.
When DEM is doing this study,
Yeah.
do they take into consideration the problems that could arise as a result of heavy construction on the wells that are close by?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know Frederick Farms kind of came up and had a lot of concerns about their wells. And that's something that the DEM does review as part of the process. But I looked at the map and I looked at Frederick Farms, and I believe they're 200 or 300 feet away from the development itself. We're bordered to the north by Bristol County Water and another parcel, and then it's Frederick's Farm. So that is something as part of the study that DEM does look at. And that's why they have all those policies in place with the stormwater, water quality, setbacks, and discharge points. And that's why they have an SESC, which is the soil erosion sedimentation control. And again, it's just such a very substantial document that's pretty complicated, and it's a complicated permit to get. So that's why I thought, you know, as part of this process, it's great that we had it in hand, because it took a long time. It's not like we went to DEM and they said, here's your permit. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth. There was multiple meetings with the state. You know, they did multiple site inspections, and there's some substantial reports, calculations.
But that was predicated on the idea that the dams were still up and that the Kickamuit Reservoir was still.
So, correct, yes, correct. The permit was issued May of 2024.
Okay.
Was a permit, and I don't
anything,
Yeah.
any of those findings were relevant to the existing conditions,
That's
which have changed significantly.
That is correct.
And again, I understand, Mr. Landry, that, you know, this is not law. You know, I mean, the changeover from DEM to CRMC is not law, so that it is legally under the auspices of DEM.
That's correct.
Okay, so to reiterate, there will be no dewatering during the construction
Not that I'm aware of, no.
and none for the houses and the apartment buildings from sumps.
Not that I'm aware of.
So no sumps, no basements on any of those construction.
Again, not that I'm aware of.
Is there any need to remove any ledge?
Again, I think we all know up at the top of the hill, there's some ledge. So is there a need to remove ledge? I don't know if I can say on the record there is, but I know from the site being out there, I can say it from just my experience from the site. So yeah, there's probably one of the buildings that needs to be removed ledge, but not every building needs to have ledge removal. And then there was a comment about.
And what would
blasting.
the effect of blasting have on local
Sure,
walls?
so that's a great question. I mean, you know, how detailed we get into that, but it's a great point. With neighbors, especially, does it have to be blasted? I don't know what kind of ledge it is. I don't know if I don't think it's that granite. I think
If I remember correctly, most of the houses on Denver
Yep.
have wells.
Yep.
Also, a lot of houses
correct.
along the lower end
Yeah.
of Kennecott have wells.
That's right. And as part of the blasting, again, just knowing just from my construction background too, is with blasting, right? They won't blast unless they need to. They'll try to remove it mechanically, but again, if there's blasting, then, you know, there's a 500-foot radius, I believe, that they have to survey. They have to get their permits from the state fire marshal. They have to go inside people's basements. They have an insurance policy. So if somebody's basement or well is compromised, then it's on them to replace it. But again, I don't think this is one of those sites where it's just all ledge, that we've done testing all through the site. It's just in that center, up at that high point, there's that cropping of ledge.
Is that the location, where one of the apartment buildings is?
Yes.
That's
proposed,
correct,
Or
yes.
both of them?
Yeah, I could look at the plan for you. So probably half on each building, if I were to guesstimate, again, don't hold me to it, but not 100% on each building. Because they both kind of straddle that summit, if you will, at high point.
Yeah. Right, you go.
The butter, Farage Farms has testified about their wells.
Yeah.
You stated that you believe the water table underneath the project itself is about 5 feet.
Well, so, no, it varies on the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does the fact that the Kickamuit River is now saltwater estuary rather than a freshwater reservoir impact that reservoir lens underground, that lens of water underground?
Again, we haven't done any additional, the monitoring, there's soil testing pipes out there, but I can't answer that question.
What would you expect, you know, based on what you observe between, you know,
So you'd like my-
reservoirs
you'd like my
and saltwater?
opinion?
Yeah.
My opinion, my professional opinion. Again, I don't see it being an effect because our site is up higher, and that's to our other point where we did some sections. Again, our building elevation's up at 20.5. And again, the reservoir is down at the lower elevations at, 302. I don't see it causing a significant burden for us. I don't, that's all. So, that's my opinion.
For blasting, how does environmental impact as far as local species impact the ability to blast in that area?
Sorry, I don't want to.
So we've had multiple statements. Even ran across someone from Massachusetts in the area who said they spotted a bald eagle in the area. We have statements about the nests in there. Are you able to speak to that at all on the impact on the environmental wildlife there? And if there are protected species, would it even be possible to blast?
I don't know if you have a.
Yeah, well, you may want to explain that protected species, endangered species is an aspect of the DEM permit that you've successfully secured. You might not want to explain how that works.
Well, I understand that, but I mean,
Yeah.
this has happened in New Jersey. There's a superior case for this where they go through permitting and they find out there's a bald eagle's nest and now they gotta redesign the buffers and the layouts because it's protected. So I understand DM, but was DM aware of the statements made that there's potentially bald eagles? We know there's a reported nest up in Barrington. We're getting reports from 3 different sources that there's a bald eagle in this vicinity. We have one source that says there's a nest somewhere along that riverbed. No one can confirm. So my concern is, you know, now are we gonna get to a point where we're having an environmental impact through just this process that we have to go to set this development?
I can address that. I read all of those letters and everybody was pretty emphatic that nobody had ever seen an eagle or an eagle's nest on this property. There's some nest well, I don't know who's laughing there, but if they submitted a letter, I apologize. But the people who didn't purport to be experts, but they talked about someone seeing an eagle fly overhead. Somebody else said there's some eagle nest somewhere along the reservoir. Nobody connected it to this property. So I don't know what to tell you. We've been through an exhaustive process where endangered species have been handled and identified, and we wouldn't have gotten a permit without it. It's a state approval regimen, the DEM endangered species. We're required to provide state approvals at the final plan stage of review, not at the preliminary plan stage of review. If somebody wants to challenge our permits or suggest that somehow we just discovered that there are eagles that people have seen in the town of Warren, if DEM wants to review what they've done, there's plenty of time to do that. We didn't even have to have a DEM permit to show you until the final plan of review. This is just a preliminary plan stage. And the same thing goes with respect to something that CRMC may or may not ever develop in terms of how to regulate this site. We're only at the preliminary plan stage of review at this time, and we hold a valid state permit on all of these issues. And I don't know how to deal with the fact that somebody sees rare birds. I think these people are fortunate that they've seen them, but that didn't start with this project. And this project's coming through under a permitting regimen that we're all bound to follow. And that's all I can say, and I do so respectfully, but that was a lot of speculation. And if the town wants to close off that whole part of Warren because there may be an eagle there, it's going to affect somebody other than my client's property. If that's what the town wants to do, or take it by eminent domain, or DEM wants to take it by eminent domain. Again, this is not a new issue. These people have been seeing these things for a long time. I'm not sure why this is coming up tonight, but there's no evidence of any type of endangered species associated with this tract that the town has on its affordable housing plan that's applicable to this project as a targeted area for high density residential development. So I'll resume my questioning, Mr. Principe. Last month, there was an Alyssa Richardson who apparently worked for DEM at some point that was suggesting that DEM may have made a mistake here, and that her former employers and boss were somehow wrong in issuing these permits. She made reference to drainage calculations and not being sure if there were drainage calculations, not being sure if there was an operating and maintenance manual. Is there any doubt about any of those things?
No, yeah, just like I just said earlier, it's a pretty substantial package that goes to DEM. Most of what Alyssa was reviewing, I don't think she had the entire package itself. So all of those items she identified could have been picked up in the report or the package or the analyses. But again, DEM's well aware of all of those items that she addressed. And again, I can bring one of the items up, which I know seems like a big issue with the separation distance. Now, DEM's very well aware of that separation distance on what we have in the water table. Again, it's a portion, it's a very small portion of the basin that's within 2 feet of the water table. And again, the water table analysis is a seasonal high water table analysis. So again, you know, in the fall months, as the leaves fall off the trees, the water table is gonna come up to the surface. And in those December, January, February, and the early spring itself, the aquifer recharges itself and it's at its highest point. So again, those numbers are at the worst case scenario for a portion of the year, but it's only for a very sliver portion of the basin itself. So those discussions are in DEM's, you know, notes, meetings, package. And, you know, like Mr. Landry had said, I think just as important on a very large project like this, it was very important for us to get that DEM permit to kind of vet these questions and issues and concerns, because they're valid concerns. But the state regulates all that: water quality, volume, recharge, again, adjacent wells, stormwater, maintenance items, right? Maintenance is going to be a huge issue because if the client doesn't maintain these DMPs and these stormwater management systems, they're not going to function as they've designed and approved. So that's important. But there's a lot of policies and boilerplates almost that DEM has that has to get reported on the project. And again, when they start, they have to call on a start of construction. They have to have a monitoring agent. I mean, there's so many different things because this project's so big. It had to get a RIPD's permit. So now we have these high standards from the state that we're going to have to follow if this project moves forward. So again, I think it was very important to get that state permit. It's not like they missed some things, because they're actually tough to deal with. So
And based on your personal recollection, was there actual hand-to-hand discussion about the separation distances, where they are,
Absolutely.
and what design DEM wanted
That's
for
correct.
this particular project? Could you
Yes.
get into that, please?
yeah, so again, I mean, the project itself, I know we've seen it, we saw the plans. There's multiple BMPs, there's underground units under the road at the beginning of Kennecut. There's an infiltration basin at the beginning of the project itself. That's just lawn. That's actually just going to be grass with a berm. And then in the back, there's the bioretention basins. And again, it's based on what do we have for a water table, what kind of volumes we need, what kind of water quality we need to implement, recharge volumes. So it's a whole complicated series of BMPs that were used based on the type of soils, recharge volumes, calculations.
For
And
the
again,
audience, please spell out BMP.
best management practice.
Thank you very
Sorry, yes, thank you for reminding me. But again, we don't have enough time to go over that. And again, your consultant, Boston O'Neill, I believe, right, Bill, did they review some of that? In the
Yes.
peer review? Yeah,
Yes.
that's why I just want to make sure, because it's been a long road here, so apologize.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, your peer review, Boston O'Neill, is a great company, does this all the time. They also reviewed that site civil drainage package. It's pretty substantial.
And,
So-
and and there was some recommendations as to notations that should be made on the plan. And you recall that we had Karen Beck from your firm testify extensively that all of those recommendations in the Fuss and O'Neill report as to footnotes and
Right,
pipe,
right. Yeah, we,
pipe,
Yep.
specs and so
Correct,
forth
yeah, and
are
we-
all routine and all acceptable.
right, we added all that. So right now, we have a plan that's in front of you that's been approved by the state and reviewed by your consulting engineer. That's already been taken into account, all those comments and updates.
And that includes the depth, the separation
Correct.
distance
Correct.
from the drainage structures. That
Yes.
was
Somewhat related to this, there's a waiver that Sutton's Green has asked for that would allow greater than 15% of lot coverage to be impervious material.
Yes.
And then there's a note that the developer agreed to withdraw the lot coverage waiver request.
Yeah, I'm not sure that waiver is necessary, but to the extent that it's necessary, we have requested it in writing as.
Greater than 15% impervious
Right.
coverage.
Yes, that,
Do you know what percentage it is?
it's about 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, so
30,
twice the amount.
20%.
Yeah,
impervious
30%.
Correct.
But
Yes, yes.
I'll explain that, Mr. Massey, if you, there's a legal component to it, and then there's a an engineering
engineering.
component to it. I did intend to address the issue of that waiver. What Mr. Massey is referring to is the Kickamuit Reservoir overlay that has a heightened lot coverage requirement based on the fact that the Kickamuit was a drinking water reservoir that had to be maintained to the highest of quality for drinking water purposes. We all know that that has ceased to be the case. But did in DEM in its jurisdiction, do I understand correctly, performed a water quality certification that assumed that this was very sensitive reservoir area, and that water quality certificate was part of the DEM.
That's correct.
And with this lot coverage that's proposed.
That's
here,
correct, yes.
And with the drainage program that's proposed.
Correct.
And would it be impracticable, and I'll use that word, impracticable, for this project as proposed and approved at the master plan level to have to somehow now have a different lot coverage that it provides for? It wouldn't be consistent with the project
Correct.
design, right?
Correct.
And
So
that's not
DEM
just a minor.
So DEM approved
The
the 30%
30%, yes.
within this RIPD's permit.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
assuming that the water quality was required was reservoir level water quality.
Correct.
Yes.
The portion of the project that's the apartments and the portion that's the driveway for the apartments, do you have an estimate of how much of that represents the 30% of impervious?
So you mean the parking areas, driveways, and basically the asphalt
Mhm.
around? I don't have that. It's in that big, thick report.
So, are there alternative asphalts that are considered pervious or not?
The answer to your question is yes. There are alternatives to hardtop bituminous, yes. Which,
And would they qualify under the definition of pervious in terms of the standard that? It's fine. Okay, in terms of the standard that that the waiver would be requested for the 15%. If all that parking were to be
porous.
Mhm. And assuming it's, say, 15% of the pervious area, is that an alternative that is practicable?
Well, again, we did look at a bunch of different iterations. Again, this project's been around for a long time. So we did look into that. But again, when you also talk about, emergency vehicles, fire protection, I know Chief Souza's here. A lot of our fire departments prefer the hardtop because it doesn't break down as easily. The porous material is very high maintenance, very high maintenance. There's certain requirements that you need to meet for the porous pavement, right? So we've done it, and so we looked into it, right? But what we, again, decided is we have the room to make this asphalt. It's easier to maintain in the long run, right? We want a project that a developer or whoever's going to manage this to be able to maintain. Plowing becomes a lot easier. We're able to fit the impervious drainage to mitigate that impervious on this site itself. And that's one of the things I think we discussed early on, even years ago. I mean, just going on years, that we knew we could do this. And we knew that the reservoir was no longer a drinking water reservoir. So, that's another legal thing that we discussed amongst ourselves about that. And obviously with DEM, that we could, implement the impervious asphalt.
The challenge that we face is we're being asked to follow DEM regulations, DEM approvals, and ignore the CRMC jurisdiction that would probably apply today. But
Well,
on the.
No, and I'll have Bill answer that. But
Well,
I just want to make sure.
we
the
talked
public
about it the other
understands
meeting,
it's
but
not in
if
CRMC jurisdiction, just
if it's.
confuse anybody.
If if another abutter were to come forward with a proposal in this neighborhood. All right, I'm gonna leave that aside. We're under DEM jurisdiction, even though it's
No matter what.
saltwater estuary.
Even if we were to go today, I think I know what you're asking, even if we were to say, start the design today. Even though they took the dam down and it's brackish, it's because we talked to the director, Jeff Willis himself about this.
We submitted his.
And it's
You
on the record.
received a.
And I just want to make sure the public's not
Yeah, it
getting
was clear.
confused.
He was,
That's all.
he said this is not CRMC jurisdiction. It may not be for years. And
Yeah.
that if there's a prior RIDEM permit, that's what CRMC would regard as
Okay.
controlling.
So, okay, so that's the controlling regulation regarding
Correct.
RIPDs and drainage and,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
such. We have controlling regulation, that's the 1992 comprehensive plan, not the 2025 comprehensive plan. And we have controlling regulation, that's the zoning ordinance that requires the 15%. That is in place now, even if it's based on a condition that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just pointing out that you're saying it doesn't apply to some things that are advantageous to you, but not to other things that are not.
No,
So I
we've always felt it doesn't apply. I mean, the issue of practicability has two aspects. How critical is the regulation? And what's the impact on your proposed project if you have to follow those standards? So if you've got in our view, if you've got a regulation that's designed to protect a drinking water reservoir, and there's no drinking water reservoir there.
How can you have it that way when you're saying that there is no reservoir there? Now you're building according as if there was a reservoir.
Yeah.
You're
I-
looking at it both ways. You're taking whatever's advantage
No, I'm not.
to you,
Yeah.
not to the town.
No, the standard we followed was what's the highest level of water quality? Okay, even though it's not a reservoir, we have a DEM approval. It says our stormwater is designed to protect reservoir quality water. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think we had to do that, but that's what we.
But that's
did.
what you're building under.
Yeah.
Is that you have to do it.
Exactly. And we complied with that standard. So, you know, there's no material adverse impact to water quality here. There wouldn't be any adverse impact to water quality if it was still a reservoir. So that fact has been established. There's no contrary evidence that's been presented by anybody, and DEM, the ultimate authority for water quality, has said that. So if you have a regulation that really is still on the books, but doesn't have the purpose that it was attached to, it never would have been enacted if that wasn't a reservoir. The reservoir setback, there's no reservoir and there's no water quality issue. So we think that goes into the issue of whether something is practicable. You've got to look at the need for it and the object and whether the object is satisfied. And so that's what our position is on that issue.
Anything else?
Okay, I have to continue with Mr. Principe on a couple other issues. I'm going to ask you now about, I know that Karen Beck is out ill today, but she's a person in your firm and you feel comfortable as her superior and the owner of the company testifying as to a couple of issues that she was involved in that we have as part of our rebuttal presentation. And one of those issues involved and Mr. Massey, I will tell you that I think we're going to make reference, I know we're going to make reference to two documents here. One is some cross sections of the site that I think you'll be interested in looking at that we submitted a couple of months ago. And the other is an enhanced tree planting plan that we presented a couple of months ago, but haven't had a chance to talk about yet. And I think so that people can see and understand, it would be best for us to have those loaded up on the screen if we can do that. We've got Mr. Have your
I have a
laptop.
laptop if you.
Might take a minute to connect that.
Do you have paper copies? We could simply make
I don't have
copies of
additional
for the.
copies, no. I know it's part of the pack, right? We submitted. those.
Yeah, we submitted a bunch of these, and they were submitted electronically. I think everybody got one with these were submitted for the July meeting. If someone wants to make copies, we can do that if that's faster than
We
plugging.
might be able to,
It's
They're done.
from the July meeting, it's called revised street trees plan.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. It's a document. We can go with that first.
Revised street trees.
and that
Yes.
was sent,
Well,
in,
I remember.
was that 8/22,
It was in the, August
Plan
meeting
set?
package.
In the plan set?
No, it's an additional, it was in the July meeting package.
It's exhibits 35. We've been numbering our exhibits as we've submitted them.
Bear with us, we're at 1,200 pages of documents, so.
I understand.
yeah, I mean, you know.
It's a lot of documents
It
for
is.
this application.
It is.
So we just made some revisions to it.
Oh,
Are there revisions since then, or?
No,
Okay.
that's in your packet. I just do it.
all right, did you want to take?
Find it?
I didn't, but I will.
No. It
Did you find the date for Alyssa's? Mailing?
it's, 4-33-A. In that package, it's in the
Can
July.
I just email it to the group? Is that allowed?
What's the date of the July package that was sent to us?
25?
8/25?
It was, yes, 8/25.
7.
Set was for information.
See, let's do that.
Is that in the preliminary?
Or in the new compressed folder.
You just want an
This
email
one?
too, Fred?
Let's just try going through this, and we're inundated
Yeah, that's
with
it right there.
files. This has gone back years. And if you're gonna reference something, I would, both sides appreciate getting something. This is not acceptable, getting this the day of. And, we're not getting paid for this. You guys are getting paid hourly. We're here as volunteers and we're getting this stuff at the last minute. This is not good. It makes our job difficult and it's unpleasant, But it's, equally on both sides. I'm really, at a loss for words as to why this is considered acceptable to bring stuff up that you feel is important and not have, we're not gonna set up something and put it on a screen now at 8:30, 8:45. Clearly, we're not gonna finish this meeting today. I suggest that we end it now, and when you come back, you bring this material, give this material to us 2 weeks before it, so we have a chance to look at it and know what you're talking about.
Mr. Massey, with all due respect, these materials were presented 2 months ago.
Yeah,
2 months ago,
yeah.
they were presented. Okay, and everybody was supposed to have them
We do,
electronically.
But if you're asking us to reference them, we don't know, this is, we're fumbling through our computers to try and find this. material.
I appreciate that. Now, we've done this before and we've been able, before the meeting, it
Right,
took very
before the-
short time to plug the laptop in. I thought there would be a break at some point here where we could take, 3 minutes to do that again.
It's not gonna
And-
take 3 minutes. The last time we did something like this, it was terrible.
I don't think.
I have
it was,
other words for it. Yeah, no,
Not
I mean,
ours.
setting stuff up in this town can be very difficult. Alyssa, will you?
And for the record, the applicant wasn't prepared last time. I had to provide the connected device from my personal briefcase to make sure you guys, so.
So I mean, this is not something we're not on the fly. We're not pulling down $500 or $200 an hour for what we do. We're doing this as volunteers, and as such, we need the help of the experts who are being paid, put this material in front of us in a coherent fashion and not expect us to go back 2 months to reference something. I mean, quite frankly, yes, we've already gotten this testimony. So we're hearing something again. I mean. I'm
No, you're not
sure what
hearing
the-
We
it.
actually haven't heard on this particular plan, and I do actually have a couple of questions. So if, I think we now have it up on our computers. If I may
no.
ask
No.
these, at
No,
least
we
these
don't.
questions.
We don't all have it up on our
Okay.
computers. And
Exhibit
that's the
33,
problem,
I can't
Jimmy.
find
We
Exhibit
can't have
35.
1 or 2 people on the board who have it up on their computers and the others don't. You know, and at this point, I think we need to reconvene with the ground rules, you know, that this stuff, when you present it, we can now take a look at it. Whatever you have, we can now take a look at it prior to, and it will save us a whole lot of time and aggravation. And quite frankly, it does neither side any good to do this kind of thing because it creates a level of frustration and disbelief, quite frankly.
Mr. President,
Yes.
can we continue on to the next topic that you don't need a PowerPoint presentation for?
We could.
We've got 15 minutes. I'd like to make use of it.
Yeah.
So we can go on to the next topic.
Yeah, and we end at 9.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to continue this entire presentation till next month, I've got no objection to it. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think that probably is what we should do. I think that's what we should do. Yes, because
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Well, before you do that, before you make the motion to adjourn, I'd like to make a suggestion. What you should do is continue the matter the next month. But put a requirement on, not only for the applicant, but also for Mr. Ryan, to submit all the materials that they want the board to consider 2 weeks prior to the meeting to Alyssa. So you set the deadline there, and that would also apply to any of the interested neighbors. If they have anything else to put in, there's a 2-week deadline prior to the meeting. I think that would foreclose any of the issues that you just discussed now.
Okay.
So with that stipulation,
And if they're going to refer to something that was submitted a year ago, 6 months ago, to highlight that so that we can find it in our computers before they come and talk to us.
well, that's correct, but if you could, within 2 weeks prior, you got the presentation.
Because nothing else is coming up. I mean, at this point, we've presented all the evidence. Mr. Landry is in the middle of the rebuttal. I mean, I understand why you would think. I don't think it's unrealistic of you to think that we would have this material, but we don't, because the volume of material we've received so far is so voluminous and has covered so much time that I spent a good part of Sunday looking over this material and past material. I've looked over what you're talking about, but I'm not confident that the rest of the board has. And if that's the case, then we're not being truly fair to either side without that kind of.
I bring this up because we're at the end. I think Mr. Landry knows what he's going to do. You could just submit it out so that you're not taking a look at what was submitted in July. You could have it as a handy reference. I think Mr. Ryan do the same thing.
And
It'll
what's
just
the
make things a lot
percentage?
easier for the last meeting, and it's one that you should really be able to wrap up on.
Okay, and I think that would be the intent. With an extension to 9:30 at that next meeting if need be.
Correct.
Okay, so with as noted by the attorney DeSisto, that all material for the next meeting be submitted 2 weeks prior.
And if I, just as a thing, it's not, as Mr. Landry pointed out, it's not anything new. It's just for reference purposes, so that the presentation would be crisper.
Right.
And you don't have to take a look at it. So just get together everything that you have that you want us to go over for the next meeting. Same with Mr. Ryan. That'll make things, I think, a little bit easier.
That's, I mean, we've got 40 exhibits. I'm not gonna submit all 40 exhibits. I may
No, no.
talk about the exhibits in my closing. But as I understand what you're saying, if we're gonna put something on display for someone to look at, we've got a revised tree planting plan, which is one of the two things here. And we've got some cross sections of what this building will look like and how far away it is from where anybody is gonna be looking. Those are two one-page sheets. We definitely will be going over those. Right now, I can't think of something else that we would show like that. But if we decide to, I understand that I need to give it to you and send a thumb drive or whatever needs to be done to make this as easy as possible so that you can see it from the very beginning of the meeting.
Correct, 2 weeks in advance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryan, is that acceptable to you too?
Yes, there's just one, two things. Board asked the traffic agent for some more information. Yeah, he said he would provide, but what happened to that department? And then the decision that Judge Manfred made is only published like a week and a half ago. I think Mr. Landry. Okay. So the thing you got tonight is, the decision he made in late August. It's published. That's a couple of weeks.
We'll supply that to the board, Mr. Ryan.
All right. So. A motion to adjourn.
There's one item on the agenda of public comment for items that do not have to do with items on the agenda.
Anyone here to speak to anything other than an item on the agenda? Seeing nothing. Motion, yeah.
Just one final thing before you adjourn. Because of the testimony that you had on the traffic study, which was really, even you had submitted, but it's really new. Fair is fair. For that limited purpose, any members of the public that want to comment on that specific point should be allowed to do so too.
Because that was new.
Correct.
Reopen public hearing.
Yeah, just
Register and-
reopen the
So we
public
would
hearing.
reopen the
continue it
public
to next
hearing
month.
to
Yeah,
that extent. Okay.
good point.
Make a motion.
To adjourn.
Well,
No, we're
done.
it's not a public hearing anymore. Put up on the town.
The new traffic report.
It is.
It is? It is.
Okay,
So is it motion to open the public comment, motion to continue, motion to adjourn?
Correct.
I make a motion to reopen the public comment for Settler Green.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to continue Settler Green to the next scheduled meeting on, forgot, sorry. On the 27th of October.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.